Okay, welcome back. Now, I went down the yard and we got some 2x4s. What I should have got, 4x4s. I don't know why I did that, but I did. Well, I've based my measurements off that line and I've just drilled 2 holes, and the whole thing is for this. So that goes in. Once I've cut that out, that will go inside. I've drilled all the way through. Didn't quite get the holes lined up, but hey ho, they're big enough to shunt it around a bit, and then we'll clean this up with some hammerite and see what we can do with it. It's not great. A bit concerned about the chain down this end, so I might cut that chain up to as far as it's good and sort all that mechanism out. I mean, look at the state of this. It's not good, is it? And there you go. Okay, so I'll get the grinder out in a minute because I haven't got my plasma cutter gun yet, and we'll trim that all up, and then I've just got to make a small indent on the end for the shaft, yeah, to go through. Anyway, here you go. So we're going to weld in those plates. That'll be boxed just to get some strength back. I am debating about a piece of angle behind up to about here just to reinforce that side. I don't think there's a lot I can do this side, and I do need to check with the crossmember outside to see if I can get away with that without it being interference anywhere else, but I don't see no reason why not. So yeah, holes are drilled. It's just a question now of cleaning the spare wheel bracket up and possibly sorting this knacker chain out, and maybe even trying to free off some of the rot on that. There you go. So that is now capped off. Well, almost, as I missed a bit. I'm not worry about that. So yeah, that will go in that way, facing front, and we'll then bolt that on. But we do need to clean this up and paint that all up and get some grease inside that, and I'm not sure if I'm even going to be able to undo any of this. I've got to get that chain out, and I've got to re-link the chain. I don't want to weld that on. I mean, this is knackered. I'm hoping that if I put it in a vise, I might be able to smash it loose and get rid of some of the rust. How the hell that comes apart though, I do not know. That has me utterly baffled. I don't think it even does it? Looking at that. Okay, there you go. It's bolted in. It's been rust treated. I've hammered the hell out of it to knock all the loose rust out. I've painted the chain up as best as possible. Everything now moves. I've shortened the chain. That actually isn't that difficult to fix. What you do is you take split pin out, and if it don't come out, you cut it out, and then you literally pull the whole lot through, and then you can detach the spring, detach the plate, you drop that round, and then you get the loop on the chain and you wind it around that little horseshoe thing, and then the whole lot just comes apart, and it's just so simple. I've also greased this up. The only thing is I think I greased the wrong side first. I went that hole because that hole was bigger. I should have gone in that one, so when you pull the chain in, it don't bring half the grease out with it. So we're going to have to wind that until that chain has disappeared into the mechanism, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, we are ready. That part is done. I have painted the inside because I knew getting access would be difficult. However, I have got a weld onto that still, so we'll be putting more in there later on. Treated both items, even treated the rust inside there because I couldn't get it out. As you can see, some of it there. And we'll cut this. We'll put the a sanding disc over it, like maybe one of them, on the grinder before we weld it in place. And I may very well hammerite that up as well, just so that it don't go rusty on me, because that's not a good thing, is it? So there's the first part of it. I've just seen a flaw in this. When I put the spare wheel back through there and I wind it in, because there's so much of this, basically this is supposed to be 4 inches up to here on the regular one, so the rim sits 4 inches high, so you can access this point here with the the crank, and unfortunately I didn't foresee that as a problem until just now. I was just looking at it thinking, hang on a moment, I've cocked up here. So what I will do is I'll measure my rim. I might even bring the wheel in actually and lay that down, draw around it and just see exactly where this rim sits, and I'll add 2 more pieces of 2x4 to the underside of that, just so that the wheel sits where it's meant to sit. Yeah, totally cocked up. Remember, isn't a like for like as such, but it is a repair panel or a repair part on a grander scale, we'll say. So I've had to weld these on, and that was just so as when the wheel go on you can still run the shaft through, because I noticed when I lowered the wheel down it was like hiding that shaft. Now on my one it's a 2x4, sorry, a 4x4 straight across the back. I haven't got that, so I'm definitely not doubling this up or drilling holes everywhere. Okay, morning. £25 a wheel. The tyres are shot, obviously, but I've got 4 rims and they fit beautifully. On the back anyway. I haven't checked the front yet. I have a feeling we might have a caliper issue. See where that caliper is? There is a spacer that I need to go and get for the front, so we may very well have to include that, so I'll have to go back at some point. Problem when you're welding stuff up is you do get some unforeseen things happen, and when I was tapping the metal, because it's a bit flaky in there, that fell out. It's not tragically thin. I mean, that must be 3mm. It's weldable. Strength wise, on its own, not good enough. I'll cut that hole out as well and I'll put another plate in there, but I think what we're going to do, as it's that bad down here, I think we'll detach this and we'll run a plate from here all the way along up to the new cross member that's going in over here. So when I put this one in first, I don't think I'm going to do any triangulation yet until I've got that one in, and I've got to find some steel for that, and I shall do that to both sides. And what I've lost here I can then gain here. I don't really want to put it this side because the mud coming off here, if it should find its way in through here, then it's just going to delaminate all of that, whereas if I put it on the inside edge, there is a big steel in there anyway, to be honest with you. Yeah, massive steel in there. So there is a second steel, but it don't go all the way. So if we take it to that hole and literally fill it and then put my new member over the top, we should be good to go. And I can also drill some. That one's already been done and ground back. Didn't grind it back because the welds are rubbish. I ground it back to what it smooth. That is the welds on that one. A little bit thin up there, but I welded it. And the difference between this welding and the welding I do in the shed, that everyone who's anyone, well, not everyone says that, but a lot of you have pointed out over the years, you can't weld for toffee. The difference is, in the shed I use CO2 and it's terrible stuff to weld with. I'm using argon shield on that one and it's welding brilliantly, and there is a massive difference between the two gases. With CO2 the welds come out a little harder as well, so a tendency to crack if there's movement in the metal, whereas with argon shield it's a little bit more flexible. So this is probably the best thing for the chassis anyway. So yeah, that one's going to get ground down next. It's a shame, but it is what it is. And then I've got to cut that one out and then grind that one down, and then as far as I'm concerned, a step drill bit to fill up those circular holes, as many as I can, and this side is done. We can then get the sander on it, clean it up as best as possible, and then we'll move on to the cross member when my gun has come for the car. I mean, I would like to patch these up as well if I could, all of them, but I don't think the chassis is that thin and needs to be worried about too much at this point. 3 patches. I've been thinking about this sandblasting issue. I bought that years ago, but I sat here and I've done nothing ever since. The back frame rotted on it. The reason why I put it down, as good as it wasn't that good. Lack of air pressure really on my part, you know, filling all this stuff up, but it takes a while. So I'm thinking 2 compressors, if it'll work. Wait, do you mind? Don't bite the flag, alright? 2 compressors, one to fill the pot up, if it can work that way, and one to blow the sand out. But we won't just leave it at that. I'll have to repair the legs, so I'm going to look at that and see what needs fixing on it. But I'm thinking, instead of plumbing it up to the pipe that you have at the end, maybe we'll plumb it up to the adapter that I've got, which is here. So if we fix maybe I don't know, run a hose up that end up to the handle with a valve, a gate, then we can blow the sand through that, and then the water will give it an additional a pressure. So if it's following the water as well, then it's going to clear a hell of a lot of rust. So just maybe we might be able to clear a lot of what you're looking at, because I did notice when I went over it with a flapper, it actually wasn't that bad on the surface. It looks worse than it actually is. I know on camera that's going to be hard to convince with the state of those cross members, okay? Yeah, I'm not going to knock you for that. However, when I was sanding this back, I did notice it wasn't that bad. So, with the aid of possibly 2 compressors, the repair of my sandblaster unit, plus my sandblaster attachment on the power washer with a modified tap, I think that might just be enough to do this myself, instead of spending an absolute fortune hiring somebody, of many of which I haven't got. Okay, that took less than, I think, roughly 20 minutes to cut that bugger out. Not that because it was really rotten, but because I had a plasma cutter to do it and not a grinder. And a grinder with all those tight, nasty angles was going to be a bloody nightmare. And that's why I was kicking off with the company about getting it, because it's here. Now, I had the Cut 50 gun before. This is proving to be really good. So, let's see what happens with it. So that's the first one gone. We just got to sit there and grind it and clean everything up. I did blow through with the plasma cutter, but we did talk about replacing that metal anyway. But it's fairly thick with all things considered. A bit thin there. But I think we've got a natural small hole there originally, didn't we? Or did we not? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that is a rot hole. Okay, so now we've got to find something to put back in its place. And I think ideally we need to take it right to the we need to go right over here, because the spring hanger is there. And we need to go as far up to here as we can go, but I don't think I've got anything to do it with. I've only got that thick old 6mm. So how good the floor of this chassis is, I couldn't say, because I would cut it out and slot it in like I did on the outside of that side, and then weld and weld. But it's pointless if there's no good metal to weld to. There you go, there is the first one. I didn't quite get it in the correct position, but it's good enough. I'm going to put some gussets in, just so as we can bring the overall length of load down to there. So we're going to gusset it to that angle on all fours, and that should be more than enough. I've cut the only weak point I could find, and I'll bring that cut all the way up, and I'm going to plate in there. So that's for tomorrow, and then we'll remove that one, which is a little bit more complicated because holding the fuel tank and there's fuel in that tank, and I don't know if there's any holes in that tank. There could be, I hope not, but there could be. So we've got to put a wet rag over that and soak the thing down, and then we've got to remove those bolts somehow. Again, don't know how. And we've got to take that brake line off, which is absolutely bloody mullered, so we may end up having to replace that flex, and then we can start cutting the new one in the shed, which I might do later on anyway, and we can then weld that in tomorrow, and then that'll be both rear cross members done. All I need to do after that is tap off all this flaky metal. Oh, we've got the inside edges to fix as well. I don't know how I'm going to do that at the moment. But when I've done that, the hard one comes, because we've then got to jack the body up in the air somehow and get those two rear mounts fixed. I have no idea how I'm doing that. I'm not plating over the old ones. I'm going to be renewing them, but I'm going to make my own. I'm just not quite sure how that's going to come around. It might pay me to go down the yard, you know, and cut one off another chassis and use it as a replacement part. I don't know if they actually do cross members for these. They do for Land Rovers all day long. Sadly, this is not a Land Rover. That cross member is in. It's gusseted up. I'm happy with that. Had to make that one a bit smaller this side because of the hole I've got to weld up, which I'm going to deal with tomorrow, but everything is nice and strong and it's gone. Now I hit lucky with that because the metal was still good, or good enough, but on this one, that's bad. Not good at all. So, what am I going to do about this? Well, the bump stops are knackered as well, so I think the best thing all round is to cut that fascia out and take the bump stops off and see how bad it is under there, and from what I can see it's quite bad. I've seen worse, I've seen better as well, and maybe do the same here as well. So we've got that lovely thick sheet which is the same thickness as the chassis, so I'm putting like for like on again, but I think on this occasion we're definitely going to have to cut bigger spaces out, so we'll have to get rid of the rest of that mount that's left, and major surgery. Okay, well, that's the hole I've cut out. Solid up there, solid behind, you know, that piece there is perfect, even the bottom plate. So this whole half of the chassis is in good condition. It's the inside edge that is not, and it just tucks under there a little bit, but where it's been welded underneath, because this has been a two split frame, just two C-sections welded together, and just up as far as where that weld is where it's gone. I also have a reinforcement plate inside there as well, so I think what I'm going to do, instead of using that thin stuff, because putting that reinforcement plate is not something I'm going to easily do or I'm comfortable with, I might cut this out just a little further up to here so I can get access to the bump stop bolt, because as you can see the state they're in. Cut them out with a grinder and then cut some more of that big old thick stuff, 6mm, and I might just actually plate it with that, because that way I'm doing two jobs at once. I'm putting the thick piece back in, giving it a massive reinforcement plate as well, which means I can then cut right up to that edge there because it's so thick, and I can lay that inside, weld across there and across there, and then I can literally go across that weld line there, and I can go across that weld line down there, and then that plate is in and the strength has been put back. If I come all the way up here with the cutter, that means I can also cut that other nut out, and then I can weld two nuts inside for the bump stops to go back in, which suits me down to the ground, even though they're knackered, number one, and number two, I want to airbag it. So I am going to have to put them back temporarily. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to very carefully weld the plate back on that's right off, or put a plate on there very carefully, and put them back on. If they fall off after the MOT, then so be it, but as long as they're on for the MOT, that's all I'm caring about at the moment. I've got enough to purchase. I did skip a bit of filming this morning. I was going to let the camera run, but I ain't got the time because I want to upload video today. So 10mm thick. If that get any holes in it, I'll become a believer in Jesus. Another one welded in. Plate has gone in there because it was a bit rotten there as well, so we cut the thin metal out. It wasn't really a hole there, it was just thin, which I discovered when I was welding that one. All the holes, inspection holes, whatever you want to call those holes, are now plated up because I do not want mud inside that chassis. I know I keep going on about it, but it's what's killing it. I have a bit of concerns down here when I welded that one up. It felt a bit thin. I kept burning through. Wouldn't surprise me. I'm kind of half debating, and I probably won't do it, but I'm half debating whether to make up a plate to go on the outside. I just don't know if it would benefit it or not, because the only plates I got is 3mm thick, and if I was going to plate it for strength, 6mm would be what needs to be put on there, minimum. So I'm thinking leave it for now, and then we'll monitor and keep a very, very close eye on everything. So yeah, the original crossmember had a curve in it. Obviously I can't completely achieve that, so what I've done, because it's closer to the front than the rear, and it ideally does need to be a 2x4, at least as much as possible, I've cut another piece which I'm now about to weld on top. Do the same on that side, and then I've just got to make the holes for the bolts, and we're ready. This whole back end is almost done then. I might give it a quick sanding, and then I can paint it with some hammerite, which is something I was reluctant to do because I wanted to sandblast everything, but do you know what, that's so light on rust that probably would pay me to do that now instead of later on. So I'm going to weld that wedge, and then I shall weld it onto the frame, do the same on that side, sand it all back as best as possible, and then weld it on. Okay, we're finished. Monstrous task of repairing it. Some of the welding went well, some of it not so well. I might have got these a little bit on the high side, but at least it's out of the way of the ground. I know this bracket is further back than it needs to be because that's where it was originally joined, so that bracket would have been at least there. So, but we've got that one to put back on as yet, which is sitting over there on that frame. But there's no point dealing with that yet because I've still got this brake unit, and I rang up Euro Parts. Nobody does it, so I'm going to have to order that off eBay. It's the only place I found it. I am not going main dealer, that will be expensive. So the fuel tank is bolted back down. I've put stainless steel nuts inside, welded them on. Perfect, does the job. Tank is where it needs to be. So yeah, that is it so far. I mean, this is about as close to like for like as I'm going to get, and I am absolutely over the moon with how this has come out, considering how bad it was. I mean, be honest with me in the comments. I mean, honest, did you expect this to get scrapped? Because I did contemplate it at one point, but because that pump cost so much to fix, I just kind of decided, you know what, I cannot afford another truck, not right this minute, not with what is going on at the moment, and I need my truck so we can get these canoeing expeditions started, which I'm really looking forward to now. I wasn't the other day, actually. I was thinking about it, I thought, do I really want to be doing all of this? Kind of too late, I'm committed. So yeah, as I said, some of the welding not so great, some of it really great. Underneath here, where I welded that on, I had the heat too hot and it was dripping off because anyway, that's the way it went. I've still got the bump stops to repair if I can get anything from them. One is okay, it's usable for now. That one is just pretty much trashed. There is a cheat for those, and that is drill through the rubber, sink a bolt halfway down, it will get you by. But I don't know if I want to go down that road at the moment. And we've got new nuts welded in there as well, stainless, so they should never rust. And in case any of you haven't noticed yet, note the shape on that bar. It mimics the old one as close as I could get it. No gussets on that because of the fact that I've doubled it up to a 4x4, and it's a lot stronger than the previous piece of metal that was in there. Plus the fact you've got two 10mm plates each side, totally over the top, ridiculous, and some very badly made gussets down here and over there. And I also added these blocks as well. That is just so that the tyre sits on the frame and doesn't tend to want to wobble. Hopefully that will be a good, and it is a modification to the original, but I'm hoping it'll be a worthwhile one. So what's left to do? Well, we've got to replace that pipework and bracketry because it's shot. We've got to clean up the bracket that goes on the back of here and weld that back on, but we're not doing it this week because I'm now going to have a weekend to myself because I'm just a little bit fed up with welding. And what's coming next, by God, is going to be 5 times worse than what I've just done, because access is near on impossible, and it is underneath there. So I've got to replace the seals because they're rotten. Now I could simply just cut the tin out and cut some new tin, bend it, weld it in, and that would be enough. I'm suspicious that it's really going to be rotten under there, so I want to cut them all out. I'm going to cut where those patches are anyway, and we're going to have a little look inside. And if it is really rotten, what I might do is cut the inner seal out as well, and then when I weld the box in, if I leave where the brackets are on the inner seal, I'll weld around those to the back of the steel, and then weld on the inside if I can get to them. Might work. Other than that, I don't know what else to do. I don't know if it comes into the MOT because it's not part of the structure of the chassis, is it? But who knows? The seat belt mounts are quite close to that area, and I don't know, I ain't done an MOT in years, and my mate does them for me, so don't get me wrong, some of the welding went really well, some of it looked like pigeon poo, snail shit, like down there. Some of it just, I was trying to conserve the wire and I went really quickly, and unfortunately that came out really bad. But some of it, not too bad if I don't mind myself saying so. So, I'm very interested in your comments. I'm very interested to know what you think of what I have done. Have I done it wrong? Will it work? Am I taking a chance? Your opinions, please. I've just got to clean up that surface, and I'm going to hammerite that bracket all up because that's a bracket I don't need to touch. Yeah, pretty pleased. Right, so that is it. Video's winding up now. I'm packing up. Next week we'll try those mounts, and then we'll look at this tub, work out what we're going to do, because I still don't really know. Other than that, all I can say is thank you for viewing. I hope this has entertained you, and I'll catch you next week when we address body mounts. Sunburn, not welder, it's the sun, very hot, tropical conditions out here. See you later.